Imagine a place painted in silence and snow, a country that exists more as a feeling than a destination on a map. This is Finland, the land consistently crowned the happiest on earth. The air here is so pure it feels sharp in the lungs, a landscape of stoic pines and 100,000 mirrors of water, frozen or flowing with the seasons. It's a society engineered for tranquility where life moves with the unhurried rhythm of a forest stream. It is a promise of peace, a blueprint for a life without friction. This is the image Finland sells to the world, the one we readily consume. But what if the canvas itself is woven from threads of shadow? What if the brightest light is defined by the deepest darkness that surrounds it? The story of Finnish happiness is not a simple tale of contentment. It is a paradox, an intricate dance between profound well-being and an equally profound melancholy that haunts the long, quiet winters. The question left hanging in the winter air is not a simple one. What is the invisible architecture that supports an entire nation through such extremes? The answer is not found in concrete or steel, but in the very character of its people. It is a foundation built upon two pillars, seemingly different yet deeply intertwined. The first is trust, a quiet, unassuming bedrock that underpins every social interaction. It is the fertile soil from which the Finnish welfare state grows. The second is a concept far more difficult to translate, a word that carries the weight of history and the chill of the north, Sisu. If trust is the ground beneath their feet, Sisu is the unbending spirit that walks upon it. Together, they form the dual engine of the Finnish soul, explaining not only how society functions, but how it endures. Trust in Finland is not a virtue to be earned, it is the default setting. It operates like a silent, powerful current guiding the flow of daily life with minimal friction. This isn't just a feeling, it's a measurable phenomenon. In global experiments where wallets are lost in major cities, Helsinki consistently ranks among the top for having them returned, cash untouched. This small act reveals a profound truth: Finnish society is built on the assumption of honesty. This fundamental belief is what allows their revered social systems to flourish. Free education, universal healthcare, and generous social benefits are not just policies, they are expressions of a collective agreement, a pact that only works if people trust that others will not abuse the system. It fosters a society where energy isn't wasted on suspicion but is instead invested in community and progress. What would it feel like to move through your day without the need for a second thought, a locked door, or a skeptical glance? But trust alone cannot explain how a nation survives the crushing weight of a dark winter or the existential threat of powerful neighbors. For that, one must understand Sisu. Often mistranslated as grit or perseverance, Sisu is something deeper. It is a form of stoic determination, a courageous resolve in the face of what seems like insurmountable odds. It is not about displaying strength, it is a quiet, internal fire that burns brightest when the world is at its coldest. This is the spirit that allowed a tiny Finnish army to hold off the colossal Soviet Union during the Winter War of 1939, an act of defiance so audacious it became legend. This same Sisu is what allows an individual to face the personal darkness of a long winter, to rise each morning, and to carry on not just with resignation, but with a grim, dignified purpose. It is the psychological fortress of the Finnish people. The question of how to raise a nation on a bedrock of trust and resilience is answered not with a decree but with a philosophy. In a world that often treats education as a factory, a place where raw minds are standardized, tested, and assembled for the workforce, Finland has chosen a different path. It has built not a factory but a garden. It is a system designed to nurture, not to mold, founded on a revolutionary and deceptively simple premise: less is more. This educational philosophy is the quiet, powerful engine that drives the country's progress. It takes the latent potential forged in Sisu and the social harmony born from trust and transforms it into one of the most innovative societies on earth, proving that the most creative minds are often the ones given the most freedom to grow. At first glance, the Finnish education system seems almost paradoxical in its simplicity. Shorter school days, little to no homework, long breaks dedicated entirely to unstructured play. A mandatory starting age of 7, protecting the sanctity of early childhood. There are no private schools, ensuring that every child, regardless of background, receives the same high-quality education. It is a system that has systematically dismantled the pillars of high-pressure learning. But why? Because the goal is not to fill a child's head with facts, but to ignite a lifelong fire of curiosity. It's less like building a skyscraper of knowledge, block by memorized block, and more like nurturing a forest where each tree is allowed to grow at its own pace, reaching for the light in its own unique way. This approach fosters a profound sense of psychological safety. When failure is treated not as a verdict but as a vital part of the learning process, students are emboldened to experiment, to question, and to take creative risks. What happens when a child's natural curiosity isn't extinguished by the pressure to perform on standardized tests? They learn to think for themselves. They learn to solve problems, not just recite solutions. This is the seedbed of innovation. It is no coincidence that a nation of just 5.5 million people has had such an outsized impact on the world. The story of Nokia, which rose from a rubber company to a global mobile phone titan, is a testament to this spirit. But that spirit did not die with Nokia's market dominance. It simply shapeshifted. Today, it thrives in the digital realm, powering a world-class video game industry with giants like Supercell and Rovio, whose creations have become a part of our global culture. This isn't an accident, it's the direct harvest of an education system that values imagination as much as it values intellect. The answer to the question lies not within walls but beneath the open sky. For the greatest Finnish classroom is nature itself, a vast, living library of forests and lakes that serves as the nation's spiritual and psychological anchor. This relationship between a people and their land is governed by a principle so fundamental it feels less like a law and more like a sacred pact. It is called jokainen oikeus, or every man's right. This is not merely a permit to wander, it is the philosophical key that unlocks the Finnish soul. It dictates that the land, with its life-giving bounty and silent wisdom, does not belong to an individual but to the collective consciousness of the nation. It is a radical declaration that nature is a birthright, an inalienable source of solace, sustenance, and identity for all. In most of the world, land is defined by fences, by signs that read private property and no trespassing. Jokainen oikeus dismantles these barriers. It grants every person the freedom to roam the countryside, to forage for mushrooms and berries, to fish with a simple line and rod, and to camp for a night, all with a quiet respect for the environment. Why is this so profound? Because it fundamentally reframes the human relationship with the natural world. Nature ceases to be a commodity to be owned or a vista to be viewed from a distance. It becomes an active, participatory part of life. This is the very reason Finland's 188,000 lakes and vast forests, which cover over 70% of the country, feel like a national backyard. They are a shared sanctuary, a common ground that reinforces the deep-seated equality of the society. This intimate connection manifests in countless ways. It is in the air they breathe, the cleanest in the world, a direct result of a culture that sees the forest not as lumber, but as the nation's lungs. It is in the reverence for the spectacular, celestial ballets of the aurora borealis in Lapland and the surreal, continuous daylight of the midnight sun. These are not just tourist attractions, they are seasonal rites of passage that connect the people to the vast, cosmic rhythms of their environment. Even the sauna ritual is an extension of this philosophy. Often built by a lake, the sauna becomes a threshold between the human body and the wild. It is a space where one is cleansed by the heat of the earth and then immersed in the bracing, life-affirming cold of the water, a full-circle return to the elements. What does it do to a person's soul to know that no matter what happens in the world of humans, the peace of the forest is always there, waiting and accessible to all? Yet, the tranquility of the forest has its limits. The solace of nature cannot completely erase a bruising history, nor can it fully illuminate the shadows that gather at the edges of the mind. The story of Finland would be incomplete, even dishonest, without confronting the formidable challenges that define its other side. This is a nation forged in a crucible of hardship, and its peace is not a gift, but a victory hard-won against two powerful adversaries. The first is an external, historical threat that looms on its long eastern border, a geopolitical reality that has shaped its destiny for centuries. The second is a more intimate, internal foe, a quiet struggle with a melancholy that seems to defy the nation's very status as the world's happiest. To understand Finland is to understand this battle on two fronts. The internal paradox is perhaps the most perplexing. How can a society that has engineered so much well-being still grapple with such profound sadness? The long, dark winters are an easy explanation, but they are not the whole story. The challenge is more complex, woven into the very fabric of Finnish culture. The same stoic reserve that fuels their Sisu can also foster a deep-seated isolation, making it difficult to articulate emotional pain. Furthermore, there is the existential void created by success. When the social safety net is strong and life's basic struggles are largely eliminated, what purpose drives a person forward? Is it possible that the human spirit, in some essential way, needs resistance to thrive? For some, the smooth, frictionless surface of a well-ordered life offers no purchase, no challenges to sharpen their sense of self. It's a quiet crisis, not of deprivation but of meaning. This internal struggle is mirrored by an external one. To live in Finland is to be perpetually aware of its geography. Sharing a 1,340-kilometer border with Russia is a fact that has dictated Finnish foreign policy and national consciousness for generations. The trauma of the Winter War is not just a history lesson, it is embedded in the national DNA, a reminder of their vulnerability and a testament to their improbable defiance. This is not an abstract fear. It is a reality so tangible that it has been built into the very ground beneath their largest city. Helsinki sits atop a vast network of underground tunnels and shelters, a subterranean city in waiting, large enough to house nearly 1 million people. It is a breathtaking display of pragmatic foresight, a silent acknowledgement that peace must always be prepared for war. This is Sisu not as a historical memory but as a living, ongoing strategy for survival. The recent decision to join NATO is not a departure from this spirit, it is its most modern expression, a proactive step to secure the tranquility they have fought so hard to build. Perhaps the greatest mistake one can make is to look to Finland for a simple recipe for happiness, a checklist to be replicated. The Finnish experience offers no easy answers, no magic formula to be bottled and sold. Instead, it offers something far more valuable, a profound and challenging perspective. It suggests that our relentless, global pursuit of happiness as a state of constant, euphoric joy might be fundamentally flawed. The lesson from this land of light and shadow is not about how to eliminate problems but how to build a life so resilient that it can withstand them. True contentment, the Finnish way suggests, is not a sunny, cloudless destination. It is a well-built harbor designed not to prevent the storms but to provide safe anchorage when they inevitably arrive. The Finnish language has a word, tyytyväisyys, which is often translated as contentment or satisfaction. It is distinct from ilo, which means joy or delight. This distinction is the key. The entire architecture of Finnish society seems engineered not to maximize moments of fleeting joy but to cultivate a deep, abiding state of contentment. It is a tapestry woven from all the threads we have explored. Trust is the warp, the strong, vertical threads that hold the entire structure together, allowing for social cohesion without constant vigilance. Sisu is the weft, the tough, horizontal threads that are woven through, providing the resilience to endure tension and adversity. The education system is the loom itself, a mechanism that prepares each new thread to be woven in, not uniformly but with its own unique strength and color. And nature, with its principle of jokamia noikius, is the living pattern of the tapestry, a constant, grounding presence that reminds the people of their place in a cycle larger than themselves. Happiness, then, is not the primary goal of the system, it is the natural byproduct. It is the peace of mind that comes from knowing you can trust your neighbor. It is the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you possess the inner strength to face a crisis. It is the freedom that comes from an education that teaches you how to think, not what to think. And it is the profound solace that comes from knowing the sanctuary of the forest is always open to you. What if a well-lived life is not a frantic climb towards a series of ever higher peaks, but the patient cultivation of a peaceful, well-tended valley? In the end, the most important lesson from Finland is not about how to become Finnish. It is about learning to look at our own lives, our own societies, and asking different questions. It encourages us to shift our focus from the pursuit of endless growth and constant stimulation to the search for balance, resilience, and a meaningful connection to our communities and our environment. Finland reminds us that happiness is not a treasure to be found at the end of a quest. It is the way you choose to travel. It is the quiet confidence that, no matter how deep the winter, you have built a life strong enough to see the spring.